All right, so good morning. My name is Jennifer, and I'm going to be taking you through crafting powerful meta advertisements. And meta advertisements refer to Facebook and Instagram advertisements at this time. So today's webinar is going to be around 50 minutes, leaving a little bit of time for discussion at the end. So like I said, my name is Jennifer. I run a social media digital marketing agency here in Kingston, Ontario, Canada. It is myself plus 3 team members who take care of everything from social media to content creation, paid advertising, and SEO. So what we're going to learn today is really focusing on the paid advertising component. So that's related to meta advertisements, Facebook, Instagram. And one of the biggest things that I do want to touch on today is audiences. And I've got lots of examples for audiences, as well as the creative. So it's not just as easy as plug and go. There's a lot that you do need to know. So we're going to talk about audiences and targeting kind of as the first step. And now, if you have come to my webinar, one of my webinars in the past, you'll know that I like to show things in the platform itself. So whether it's Canva or Meta Business Manager. So I do have slides prepared, but then I will also slide across the Meta Business Manager for you to see as well. All right, so let's get started with targeting. And within meta advertisements, I'd say there's 3 main groupings of audience options. So they are called saved, custom, and lookalike. And the first one, saved, is a little bit confusing. You think it's things that you have saved, but it's the audience type is called saved that you create. And I always recommend setting these up for your different, it might be a customer or business unit within your organization. So you can have lots and lots of different advertising presets available within your business manager. Has anyone set up a saved customer lookalike audience before? You can throw in the chat a yes or a thumbs up. Got a smaller group today, and that's okay. No? A little bit nervous? Okay. So let's talk about your saved audience. So your saved audience is the one that you're probably most familiar with. And they are built upon basic demographic features of users of Facebook. So they include things like age, gender, interests, location, and things of that nature. So those are the ones that you're probably most aware of. So you think, oh, I'm going to target women, or I'm going to target people who like basketball. That's a saved audience. What you're creating is a saved audience. So let's talk about this a little bit more. So when you're creating something like this, you may have gone through a field that looks like this. So this is available within the Business Manager suite. So you can see here, I've targeted people in Toronto plus 25 miles who are between 40 and 60, who identify as women, and their detailed targeting is camping. So they have shown some sort of interest in camping or outdoor activities. Does anyone know where that comes from in the group? How does Facebook know this grouping of people likes camping? Okay. So where this interest information comes from, it comes from the websites that you visit. It comes from the Facebook pages that you engage with, that you like, that you follow. And then it also can take into account some of your chats. So if you're corresponding with friends and family and saying, let's go camping, I love camping, it's going to pick up those triggers. So very kind of similar to how Google Ads work, a little bit different. But that's where it's pulling. Yeah, that's where it's pulling all of this information. The other thing where it might be pulling up too, so when you initially downloaded the Facebook app, you gave it permissions to also probably listen to your conversations. So it does have a microphone enabled that it's tracking everything that you're saying as well. So similar to maybe what your TV does or other apps, it's tracking all of that information that it can hear, as well as what it can record actions that you're doing in app. So that's how it starts to make that profile for you. Google uses similar tactics as well. So don't just put all the blame on Facebook and Meta here. Okay, so this is how a saved audience is built. And you can see down in the bottom right-hand corner, that estimated audience is around 224,000 people. So you can add and remove as much as you want out of this audience. Now, what I like to do is to refine the audience a little bit more. Now, where I find that people get caught within the audience creation is in the detailed targeting. So I'm going to go back a page just for a moment. So you can see here, we've got interest right at the bottom and it says camping. Okay. And then what I find that people do is they start to put a whole bunch of words in here. They're like camping and canoeing and kayaking and hiking and, backwoods, survival. They start to kind of overload that component. And that's not what we want to do. So what you want to do is actually start to refine. So you can see here, I've got detailed targeting. I've added in canoeing, kayaking, and camping. So each interest here is an or. So let's think back to math class, probably in high school a little bit. But right now, it's anyone who is interested in camping or kayaking or canoeing. So you can see how this audience got bigger, right? We're just putting a whole bunch of or categories in here. So now our audience is around 258,000 people, generally-ish, okay? So I recommend actually narrowing, so making it smaller. So where this comes into play is still under the detailed targeting, but there's a section that's called and must also match. And what that does, it creates an and. Okay. So now I want people who are interested in camping and coffee. They have to meet both criteria to fall into my audience. See what I did there? So instead of making the audience bigger, I'm refining it a little bit more. So it's not just people who like camping or coffee. I want people who like camping and coffee. So that's a big difference with respect to targeting. That's one of my favorite things to do. The other thing that you can do in here to refine the audience, to be more specific, is to use a feature called exclude. So we've got here camping, and I want to narrow the audience, and I want to exclude anyone who likes kayaking. Maybe I'm trying to focus on people who canoe or maybe swim or do other water activities, but you can actually remove people from the audience. So what I find with meta advertising is people add too many people to the audience, and then you're just kind of talking to nobody, when in fact you want to remove people from the audience. Okay. So when you are looking, so there's this old example that I have. It's a farmer, and we're friends now. This goes years back. And she was in a webinar or in a workshop. And she said to me, I want to target people who are going to buy, farm fresh meat from us. And I'm thinking, how am I going to do this? Like, how do we find people who, want to purchase the local, chickens and beef and whatnot for purchase? And it's difficult. You don't just type into Meta here, you go meat eaters or steak or chicken. It's a bit odd. Somebody's not going to go to Meta and say, hey, I'm a chicken eater kind of here. So what you can actually do, and what sometimes helps, is you can reverse engineer. So what I had told this farmer, I said, well, target your area. So this kind of neighborhood-ish city area that you want to target. And then I want you to exclude vegans and vegetarians. And then that remains all the people who identify as somebody who eats and consumes meat and meat products. So sometimes if you do find it a little bit more challenging to do targeting, and you think my audience is so broad, go in reverse and say, who is not my customer? And kind of reverse engineer it a little bit. Does that make sense? That's a very heavy, that's a very heavy 10 minutes here in the webinar. Does anyone want to see an example of this? I won't do it if you don't respond, but I will do an example if you want me to. Why not? Thank you, Amanda. Let's do it. This is how I get engagement on the webinars. This is the benefit of coming. All right, so let's bring over. Okay. All right. So warning, not everybody's ads manager looks like this. They're kind of going through a little bit of an update. So some are the old version and some look a little bit more like this. So this is on the second page under your ad set. So you can see audience controls and advantage plus audience. So they're starting to hide some of the interest categories and the targeting options. So all you have to do is tap switch to original. And I just want to use original so we can see this. Okay. All right. So this is what you can start with. So let's do, anyone want to give me a city? Because if not, I'll default to Kingston. Might do Toronto. Kingston is good. Okay, we'll do Kingston. Kingston, Ontario. Okay, so within your targeting, you can choose a city. Okay, so city is one option. Second option is you can drop a pin. So if you think, oh, you know, I want to be up here in the between these two major highways. So you can do geocode, you can do city, and then you can do postal code. So K7M3 first alphanumeric. So you can see zip or postal code K7M Kingston, Ontario. And this takes up most of Kingston, to be honest. So it takes up most of it. So actually, I'm going to add a Napanese so you can see the 3 different ways we can target. And I'm sorry, I can't make this box bigger for you. So there's 3 different ways you can target based on location. So you've got geocode, postal code, and city or town, if it's available in here. If it's not available, you can use this geocode. The other thing you can do is you can exclude. So we can say add exclusion. So we've got this green check mark, add exclusions. And oftentimes, and I'm sorry for anyone joining us from the States, but we can oftentimes remove United Kingdom, United States. So if you don't want your ads, because we are kind of a border town, you can actually exclude countries, states, provinces, or cities and towns. So you can also do that as well for targeting. Okay, so those are the kind of 4 ways to target based on location. And then you can go into age. So you can start at 18 and then after 65, you're just done, I guess. So you can choose any range within here, which is different than some of the other social media where they give you preset age ranges. These ones you can be a little bit more specific. So we can simply say like 34 to 64, just as a starting point. And it says 109,000 people. And then you can choose gender. Unfortunately, at this time, Facebook doesn't have the option to do people who identify as non-binary. It's simply men and women. So you can choose all if you prefer or want to have men or women, you can do that. But they just simply don't have that option at this time. Now, in terms of detailed targeting, this is, again, where a lot of people fall down. So we can say, let's just do canoe. I'm going to try and move that out of the way. So you can see in here, I put the word canoe. So we've got it as a watercraft or a water sport. We've got whitewater canoeing, old town canoes and kayaks. Maybe that's a business. It'd have to be pretty big. I'm not sure. And then wild water canoeing. So you can choose one of these. What's popping up just to the right of that is 7 million to 8 million. That's across Meta, the whole Meta. So you can choose which one you think is going to work best for you. So we can say canoe, and we'll just say watercraft for right now. So there's 6,000 people. So this would be really great if you sold canoes. You know, you can target people who have an interest in canoes. And then these two buttons are probably the least used buttons across Facebook, I would say. So this is that narrow audience. So you want to find people who like canoeing, and I'm just going to say hikings. Maybe you offer canoe hiking excursions. So again, you can look to see how many different options are within hiking. So within kind of our geographic area, it looks like 1,900 people to 2,300. It's a little bit small, but that's kind of what we're working with. I would generally expand it out a bit larger. So now we've got canoe and must also match. And then this is where you can add the exclusion. So you can exclude people who drink maybe tea. Tea is a non-alcoholic beverage. So then it removes people out of your audience. So it does take a little bit of time to create these audiences, but once you've done it and you think, Jennifer, this is going to take far too long, you can always save this audience. So Facebook will always prompt you to say, like, expand beyond what you've told us. So you can do that if you want. You can test it out to see if it works for you. It does in some instances, but not in all. And then you can choose languages. And I say languages. So if your ad will be written in English, it should be English speaking. If it's written in French, French speaking. And that's how I do the targeting. So then once you're done, you can simply say, save this audience. So you're not creating the wheel again and again and again. You set your audiences and then you can grab them as you go. Find figuring out interest as service-based company. What's your business CT? Because service-based can be tough. I agree. I worked a lot within the HVAC industry, so heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and we live in Canada, so everyone needs a furnace except for people in apartments. Okay, so legal service. I thought it said meditation. I was like, you offer legal meditation, mediation, paralegal, and notary. So for something like this, you could do it based on who you think is going to be using your services at a certain time. So I'm not a lawyer. I don't know much about law. The only thing I know about law is what I've learned from Suits, the Netflix show. So just bear with me. So it could just go on what people are kind of their life stage at that point. So if you find that it's younger people using mediation, focus it more on the age bracket than, you know, everybody all the time. So if you're finding maybe older people are coming in for a certain service, target it towards that. It's probably the best way to go because really it depends. Hard to say people who have upset when their tenant or landlord say they're interested in apartments. Okay, so it's like, oh, you've got a fun job. Okay, so hard to say people who have upset around their tenants or landlords to say they're interested in apartments. So that might be more of an age thing, I would say, than anything. And the other caveat is maybe meta ads aren't for you. So maybe they're more of Google ads. So people are searching out for those types of services. And then you do retargeting on Meta is probably how I would do it. I would probably start with Google and then retarget with Meta. And then Neil, I'd love to know when you use a saved audience and then add interests. I'd love to know when you use a saved audience. Okay, so the saved audience, so once you've saved it, okay, this is confusing. It's considered a saved audience. So I'm going to get into it in a minute. So your audiences are under here. So we've got saved audience, lookalike, and custom. So the saved audience is what we just did, but the action we're doing is we're saving it as a saved audience. I don't know why they have the same name. I think that answers your question. And then Helen, so it's a free webinar, but you can purchase a copy of the recording if you would like that. And I will send that out after. Thank you for your questions. Okay, so let's talk about the custom audience. So as CT and I were chatting, maybe the first step is the Google ads, and then you can use custom audiences for remarketing purposes. So your custom audiences look a little bit like this. They're very different than the saved audience. So the saved audiences, we're trying to figure out who we want to show our ads to. That's a saved audience. You know, we want to find people who like canoeing and hiking, and that's great. Custom audiences are very different. So custom audiences, and you're probably looking at the screen saying, what is this? So custom audiences are used more often for remarketing. So meaning an individual has shown an interest in your business, your Facebook page, your Instagram account, they've been on your website. So what you need to do for custom audiences is have the Meta Pixel installed on your website, and then you can track those visitors and then send ads to them or have ads delivered to them within a set parameter. Other ones that are of interest to most people is Facebook pages and Instagram accounts. So people have interacted with you online, and now you're going to continue to show them ads. So if you've ever maybe clicked on somebody's Instagram account or watched a reel and clicked like, and then you start to see sponsored ads from them, this is exactly what they're doing. And you can do the same thing as well, but it's just knowing that that tool is available for you. So your website. So if you go to my website, you're basically going to exist within a pool of people, and I can remarket and show you ads from today out 6 months if you've been on my website, because I can track that activity. So many of you, when you go to websites now, you get the accept cookies, decline, only, necessary ones, and so on. That's exactly what they're doing. That's one of those pieces that they're doing. So these website visitors, it can be holistically. So, you clicked on anywhere on my website, or it can be a specific page. So going back to CT, you could retarget people who've been on your paralegal page and then show only that group your paralegal services. So you draw them in with a Google ad, and then you remarket people who've landed on your paralegal, and only show it to that grouping of people. So that's probably maybe what you want to do. So the retention goes up to 6 months or 180 days, but it also can be as small or short as one day. So this totally depends on your customer buying cycle. So for something small, so I've got customers in retail, so 1 to 5 days to decide if they want to buy a shirt or a top or a pen, versus people in larger purchase decisions, they may need more time. So if it's a vehicle, most people, I don't want to classify, most people don't decide they want to buy a vehicle today. They do a lot of research, unless unfortunately they've been in an accident and they need a new car. But for the most part, the buying cycle is a bit longer. So that will depend on your customer base and the service that you're offering. So these pixels, they've now been kind of rebranded to data sets. So it's code that sits on your website that tracks people who have been on your website. So it used to be pixels, now it's more data sets. So it looks like this. It's similar to what you're seeing probably in your G4 analytics, so Google Analytics G4. And it simply tracks, and it says, this is what people are doing. This is how many people have been on your site. And now this is your audience of people. The next one that's interesting is your Facebook. So for those of you who do have a Facebook presence, you can remarket to them starting today. You don't need to do anything. And it can go back an entire year. So it's, I can start remarketing to people who have been on my website October 12th of 2022. And it's that rolling cycle of people. So it can include anyone who's liked or followed your page, engaged with any of your content. They've simply visited your page. Maybe they sent a message to your page or saved your page or any of your content. So the same exists for Instagram as well. The parameters are a little bit different because Instagram's a bit different than Facebook, but as anyone who's followed, engaged, visited, sent a message. So if you're wondering how you get remarketed, this is what's happening in the background. So for myself, I'm very cognizant of the items that I like or the things that I comment on because I know that this is happening in the background. Okay, so that's the big difference between the two. So I'm going to show you. So under your custom audience, and then there's your custom audience here. This is that kind of control button. There's a lot of options, but we only have like 50 minutes. So the first is your website. Oh, it doesn't have, this is embarrassing. I have our example ads manager set up. So in the ads manager, let's just do this one then, custom. Let's just do Instagram account. So we'll go to here. So you can see here, anyone who's following, engaged, visited, engaged, and so on. And then retention means, how big that pool is. So it can be as low as 1, it can be as high as 365. So we can say 365, anyone who's engaged. And then if you've got multiple accounts, you can add these in as well. So you can layer on, and then you can also exclude as well. So this is something that you can start doing today. And I really love it for remarketing. It's not kind of the first step, it's kind of a mid-range step. Okay. Only got 20 minutes left. I don't know if I'm going to make it. Okay. And then as with all of these audiences, so especially your custom audiences, you can do further narrowing of this audience. So if you think about it, how many times have you landed on a website and you're like, oh, this is not the restaurant in my downtown, or nope, that retailer doesn't ship to Canada or whatever. And then you're just gone. Like it just wasn't for you. It wasn't the right fit. So you can narrow these audiences further. So it can go for your Facebook, Instagram, your website audiences. And basically to that point, you want to target people who you can ship to, that you can service, that you can, you're able to cook for. You don't want people in another country who are never going to come see you. And I did it yesterday. I was looking for a restaurant and I was like, oh, this looks really nice. And it was the name of a restaurant, but it was in Saskatoon. I'm like, this is not the one that I thought it was. And then I ended up on the right one. So when you add in your website, you can say, yes, just, people in my website, but only people who live in Canada if you ship, or only people who live in Toronto. Maybe you're a restaurant, you can't ship to another province. So again, that helps to refine that budget a little bit further. There are so many times where I see ads come up on my feed or my Instagram, and I'm thinking, you're nowhere near me. Like, how am I getting this ad? It's so bad. There's an account that I took over recently, and it's not a big budget. And I was looking at it and I said, why are people engaging with this? And so I took over the ads as well. And they were targeting Canada. And I'm thinking, this organization, they don't ship, they're local. They don't care about people necessarily in other provinces or other areas. They want local people within kind of a geographic drive to come. So I refined it drastically, and the performance has increased tons. Okay, lookalike audiences. So we'll talk about lookalike audiences, and then we'll get into creative. So lookalike audiences are people who are likely to be interested in your product, service, and offering based on similar characteristics that your audience shares. Okay, I'll answer your question in a minute. So the 1% audience, so if you've ever looked at a 1% audience, it goes from 1 to 10%. So the 1% audience is probably the best one that you're going to get. It's the smallest, but it's going to be the best performing for you. So 1% audience is good if it's of value. So which audience is best? So we've got saved, we've got custom, we've got lookalike. Which one is best for you? And that depends on your business. It depends on what you're trying to do. So I see that Mo just asked a question: how can we set audience with interest in local purchase? If that relates to a local business, let's say in Kingston or Toronto, you start with that local. You can set an address to your location, encouraging people for foot traffic. If you ship online, targeting people who, you ship within Ontario or you ship within Canada. You can set those parameters as well. So each audience has its own purpose. So like I was saying to CT, maybe you start with Google Ads, depending on the intent of what you're trying to achieve. How do people find you? Do they Google best Indian restaurant Toronto? Is that how they find you? Are they seeing ads on Facebook? And then are you retargeting to them? So it really depends on what you want to do, because today we're just talking about meta ads, but there's ads on LinkedIn, there's Pinterest, there's Google, there's location based on Google. So there's a lot of different options out there. And what I like to do is kind of share what you can do with, in this case, Meta. And what I like to do is kind of let you know so that you can make better informed decisions. Okay, I understand. Okay, so locating your audiences in Meta Business Suite. It's on the left-hand side under audiences, and then you've got the 3 options there. So I do want to go through the special ad categories quickly because I think it's important, and then I'll answer a few questions before we get started with the next section. So special ad categories, I want everybody to be made aware. If you fall within any of these categories, you do need to say that you do fall within a special ad category. So it can do with housing. So that includes property listings, real estate, mortgage brokers. It can be employment, meaning you're hiring people, you're offering a certification, or credit. So that comes down to credit loans, financing, anything with a dollar sign or percentage. Yes, Amanda, that's you, KCCU. You're under credit for sure. It's in your name. It's a credit union. So you do need to check this box, and it's simply Meta's tactic to avoid discrimination against certain populations and groups. So if you fall within these categories, make sure you're checking the box. If they notice, they will close your ad account completely. So credit cards, personal loans, mortgage loans, refinancing, employment. This is where a lot of people get caught, the employment. They're like, I'm just advertising a server position. And then, yes, you put women, and yes, you put 20 to 24. You can't do that. So employment should be open opportunity to everybody. So anything to do with employment, internships, certification programs, job fairs, job boards. This is where most people get caught. Okay, so question time. I'm just going to pause for a minute and answer outstanding questions, and then we'll get started on kind of the next section. So Mo, we're a local florist, but maybe someone wants to purchase for a loved one in my area, but she lives in Canada. Where are you, Mo? Like, what city are you in? Mo is still with us. Ooh, California. Welcome. So what you'd probably do in this case, so if you do find, and you do the shipping, what people are going to do, you have to think how customers think. So probably what you're looking at is more Google ads for something like that. Because what people will do, and I've done this before, I send stuff to my family. They're about 6 hours from me, still in Canada, but I Google flowers, Sarnia, and I see what comes up. So what you might do is do targeting for people looking for flowers, in your case, in Irvine, California. And it's a Google ad across states, but it's only triggered when people are doing those exact search terms. You know, they're looking for flowers or a gift shop that can provide delivery within the geographic area. So it might not be Meta, but it can certainly be used for retargeting, I think. But otherwise, Meta is not going to find that, you know, find that exact individual. So CT wants a Google ads. That might be down the road. That might be down the road. Yes, it can get expensive very quickly. Okay, creative. And I'm all about telling people which way to go. You know, today's workshop, if you come away and go, I think maybe I need to go down this path instead of that path, that's what I really want you to do. Like, I love Google ads and I love all this, but you need to find what works best for you. Okay, so let's talk about creative for a little bit. And I'm trying to see. So CT, Mo, maybe Mo, this might work for you depending on your structure of your online store. So the first type is dynamic ads. Probably one of my favorite ads that you can run. Works the best with Shopify. So if anyone here does maintain a Shopify store for their retail goods, basically what it's going to do is show the products that are most relevancy to the person who's looking at it. There's a local retailer kind of around here that I work with, and she sells lots of interesting things, including bird things and wine glasses and such. I always get shown the bird things, the wine glasses, and then the wine glasses with birds on it. And I was like, they know what they're doing. Like, they can figure it out. So dynamic ads will take your entire catalog. Shopify does honestly work the best, but it does work with other e-commerce, and it will tailor it individually to everybody who sees your ad. So Mo, if you have an online store that shows the different like flower arrangements and categories, it might be a really great option for you as a retargeting method. So if somebody was looking at red roses versus like the Gerber daisies, like that's what is going to show to them. And it might be different for me or somebody else. And then what you can do is set up different categories. So with Christmas coming up, you might have a retail good for just your Christmas items. The flower store might have, you know, sympathy versus congratulations versus birthday flowers. So you can have the different categories set up within Shopify, and it simply, you can pull from that for your meta ads. So really good. I love it. And you can see here this example that I pulled, that those images are just customized for each person that sees it. So it's a really great option. Oh, burning quick. Okay. Okay, so you're creative. Number one, short text. So if you get nothing else from today's session, aside from maybe you don't need meta ads or maybe you do, one sentence. If you have to say a lot, maybe 2 sentences. Quicker the better. So Lego, for example, you've got about 0.4 seconds to do that. Carousel options. So again, good for anybody in retail. They can scroll through. Each scroll through has a different link. So if you want kind of this collection of lip gloss versus like the single item, then once you tap on it, it goes directly to. And you can have up to 10 items in here. They are the user experience for you setting up these ads. It's terrible. Whenever a client wants to do carousel ads, part of me dies inside because it's the most frustrating thing that you probably will do on meta ads. Just the user experience of the boxes and the popping. So patience when you get to this section if you choose to do the carousel ads. Making sure you add an appropriate call to action. So we've got down here under donate now. So depending on what ad category you do, awareness versus engagement versus, I think it's called traffic. They keep changing the name traffic. They actually give you different call to action buttons. So I've had people say, well, I can use the donate now button sometimes, but then other times it's not there. It goes back to what type of ad that you're doing. So if it's there sometimes and not the other, you're doing a different ad. Okay, so CT, this is kind of your question. So when you're doing creative and you want to do those Instagram reel ads or Facebook reel ads, you can simply grab an existing piece of content. So it might be your video and you just add money to it. It's similar to a boosted post, but a little bit different. I don't like to use the word boosted post because it's like the quick and dirty way to do an advertisement without it having kind of all the refined pieces to it. But it's as simple as that. So similar to a boosted post, it's called an engagement post. You can do the ad that way, and then you can show it either to a saved audience, so broad, or it can be people who have already engaged with you in some way, shape, or form. And then when you're considering what types of images to use, please use good images. And if you can have people using your products or images, they tend to perform a lot better than just generic. Do not use generic images. Try to make it your own. For those of you who use Canva, it's a great tool. It's a great photo editor. And then they've added in the last week or so, I want to say it's called like magic background. So it does the expand of the background using AI. So you can edit your own pictures and make them look good using Canva. Just don't use stock photography. And honestly, across all of your ads, keep it super, super simple. So Timex, I'm being served this because my 6-year-old, he loves watches. So I get served watches. So they've got 2 sentences and then their images are very crisp, clean. Timex watch, shop now. It's pretty basic, but you know exactly what to do when you see the ad. You don't have to read anything. You know that the ad is there. So you click on it. If you're interested in one of them, keep it simple. And I find that a lot of small businesses, they want to say a lot of things. But I always say, get to the heart of what you're trying to do. Okay, so lots of questions. I'm going to pause for a minute. CT wants a Google Ads. I already want to budget. Okay, great. The story ads. Okay, I'm going to show how to do this. Is understanding how to grab the advert ID from the best performing dynamic ad to advanced? Like the ad type ID, like what would you need that for, Neil? I don't know what an advert ID is. Oh, those. Yeah, I can show you how to do that. Let's go in here. I think I know what you're saying. Yeah, I think there's a couple different things that I'll show you in here. This is traffic. Apologies, I just have to go back and create a different ad campaign. So engagement, manual. So I'll kind of, yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go right to the ad set. And then on your ad, post engagement. Okay, so let's just go to, so here use an existing post and then select post. You can go to Instagram. And choose from there. Facebook. You can choose from there. Now, I'm going to create a post just as an example. Okay. So you can make a post. So you can see all the different placements in here. It's in my presentation, but I think I'm jumping ahead. So you can see all the different placements in here. So it's a matter of having different sizes. So basically for every ad that you want to create, if you want to maximize like and be across all the different placements, you have to have 3 different sizes. So you can see here, like for these stories and reels, like they're not big enough. So they're not quite that 1920 by 1080. And then the ads on Facebook Reels. So then you can go through and you can edit the different variations of them based on what you want to do. Now for Neil's question. Let's see. Okay, so for Neil's question, you can see primary text 1 of 5. So I'll just say Jennifer Baker. So you can add in multiple primary text. You can add in multiple headlines. You can add in multiple descriptions. And it basically will rotate between those different combinations and it will result in the one that best performs. Now, where you find that out is under ads reporting. And then you go under dynamic creative. Oh, I have to click an actual. It's under ads reporting and then it's under creative. Hopefully do all this. So you can see the different objectives. So we don't do as much dynamic in here, but this is where it would break it down into like the 5 different options for each so that you can see what performs best and the amount spent per. So it's under your ads reporting. So like Meta can see it, but like you can also see it too, so that you can make adjustments. Make sense? Yeah. Okay. And like I was saying, you've got different placements across different channels. So different aspect ratios. So generally you're going to have 3 different creatives if you're going to do all aspect ratios. And you don't have to, but if you do want to have those different ad ratios, and then I can put this in the email after this webinar, but it's just different ads. I was going to put them in the webinar and I'm like, they change all the time. So honestly, this website's great if you're planning on doing a story versus a feed post, like the exact kind of requirements of what you need. So, okay. We're on time. I had 1 minute. So today in our whirlwind 50-minute session, we talked about your audience segments. We talked about your dynamic advertising, advertising creative, and kind of all wrapped in there is your Meta Ads Business Manager. So I'm going to take the next 5 minutes or so and take any questions that you have. For those of you who have purchased an advanced copy, you'll be receiving that in the next 24 hours. If you haven't purchased but want to purchase a copy, it will be on my website in the next day or so. Okay, so CT, you've got a question. And let me just give me a minute to read it. Yes. So what people are being very not sneaky, but they're trying to use more average images and photos to make it look like it's supposed to be there. It's less sometimes polished. It's still polished, but less polished to make it look more natural is what they're doing. 100%. For a clothing brand, I guess it depends on price point, Neil. So how heavy do you want to hit people? Like, how often do you want to have ads appear to an individual? Is it once every 7 days, or once every 7 days, or every single day for 7 days? Yes. So that's what it means. Um, Attribution basically means how often you want somebody to see your ad. So an attribution of like 1/7 is basically, I will see your clothing ad one time in 7 days. If it's 6/7, it will be, I see your ad 6 times over 7 days. So part of it depends on how big your audience is and how much advertising you need to kind of present to them for them to convert, is really what it means. Also understanding, and I like to put yourself in the driver's seat, is at what point do ads become annoying? So I'm a person when I'm not working, and when I see the same ad hundreds and hundreds of times, I'll mute and I'll block, and I'm like, I get it. I'm done. I've done it with credit cards. So think about it from your consumer perspective. It might be 2/7, like 2 times over 7 days. But the thing is, you could also run multiple ads, and you can have multiple ads running within the same ad set. So you could have one with, I'll say like a t-shirt, and then one with pants. So somebody might see the ad, but it's a different ad, therefore perhaps less annoying than seeing the same image constantly. So let me just bring up a campaign for a moment. It's really hard to say everything I want to say in such a short time. So let's go in here. So what most people don't know about ads is, so you've got your campaign, and then you've got your ad set. So you might have the 1/7 in here, but then you can have multiple ads in here. So you can say, no, I do it here. New ad, great ad, sure. So then you can have multiple ads in here showing different product lines. So it could be, let's say, all your tops, and then all your bottoms, and then maybe the shoes. So different ads with different headlines and product images, all running within one ad set, a part of one campaign, as a thought. Is good ad renewal. It depends. So it depends on how big your audience is. CT, again, for you, I see you more of Google ads, to be honest. I see you more Google ads, and then remarketing. And honestly, remarketing, you don't necessarily have to mess around with, because you could just have a retention of 30 days, because if somebody needs a paralegal, they probably need to act on it pretty quickly. They're not going to necessarily dwell over notary services for more than, 10 days, 14 days, because they need something done. So it's just, the audience will turn over constantly. So isn't a lot of need to create new collateral all the time if you're using it in that manner. Just my thought anyways. Any other last questions? It was a small group, but it was a very enjoyable group today. Okay, so I guess if there's no further questions, it's 10:55 and we're wrapping up just on time. Thank you so much for attending. All of your questions, Neil, Amanda, Mo, CT, it's been great. You will be getting an email from me shortly if you have purchased a copy. So thanks so much. I hope you have a wonderful day.